Welcome to Real Talk with Eugene. And I'm going to open up this segment in prayer, with a prayer. Recognizing first and foremost that there is an infinite intelligence called by so many different names. Sometimes it's known as God. Sometimes it is known as Allah. Sometimes it is known as Krishna. Sometimes it is known as Shango or Olodumare. I choose to call it forth into this conscious awareness, recognizing that this thing that I call God is at the very center of all of life and having no circumference whatsoever. There isn't anything that exists outside of the presence of the infinite. For truly God is all there is, expressing itself in, through, and as everything that is seen, everything that is heard, everything that is known, everything is unseen, everything that is not heard, everything that is unknown. It is still the infinite intelligence at the very center of all of life. And so, recognizing that it is everywhere present at all times, I know that at all times it is present right where I am. And as I know this to be the truth of my life, I know this to be the truth of each individualized expression of the one right here and right now on this real talk. I am so very grateful that Spirit is showing up so beautifully as Mendhi and as Amanda and as Lane and as Masando and as Raymont and as Robert Brzezinski when he shows up, and as myself. And so it is in this united state of consciousness that we have come together to have a real conversation about what is really going on in our own lives and in the life of the world collectively. So I know that whatever is said, it is said from the abundance of the heart for the soul's purpose of experiencing itself at its highest and greatest level, here and right now. For this, I give great thanks. I surrender this word. I let it go and I let it be. I declare that it is so, and so it is. Amen.
So it is. Amen.
Whew, man, I am excited about this. This Real Talk segment, which is very different, very new, and I hope that we continue to do this throughout time. And so I want to throw out this question that we've talked about earlier. Well, before I do that, I want to just have you guys introduce yourself, and I'm going to start off with my dear brother, which all the guys on here are my dear brothers, so you're wondering which one. I want to start off with my dear brother, the Reverend Masando.
So honored to be a part of this group. I'm an assistant minister here at Mile High Church in Lakewood, Colorado. Where my focus is on social uplift and outreach. I have the task and real honor and pleasure of doing lots of ministry outside the walls of our church. So I get to interface with and interact with all of our community partners and all of our soon-to-be community partners, just really taking our philosophy and our teaching out to the world as much as possible. Really happy to be here and happy to be with all of you.
Cool. Thank you. I'm glad you're here, man.
Yeah, man.
Reverend Robert Brzezinski. Glad you made it, bro. Can't hear you right now.
Let's try this. How about that?
That works.
There we go. Well, thank you. It is so wonderful to be with all of you. I see a collection of wonderful faces in front of me, and I know there's a ton of wonderful faces out there watching this. So I'm very, very happy to be here with all of you, based out of Arvada, Colorado. And I am what I call myself a minister at large, also a multi-passionate entrepreneur. And so you find me doing all kinds of fun stuff, all kinds of interesting stuff. Right now, the big project is building the New Thought Radio, which you can find at newthoughtradio.net. And anyway, enough about me. I'm here to learn all about you. So happy to be with you all.
Thank you. Let's go next with the Reverend Lane Cobb.
Hello, peace and blessings. Thank you, Eugene, for inviting me to be with all of these heavy hitters up here. I'm so pleased. And I'm just saying everybody is a heavy hitter. So that includes me.
Right.
I'm just at this point, I'm from New York, but I am in Baltimore right now. And I am an interim minister at the Open Church in Arbutus, Maryland. And it's a Christian-based church with an interfaith initiative, and I've kind of been charged with pastoral care, but also with kind of manifesting that interfaith initiative, and which is proving to be very interesting because I have a very liberal ministerial background. I grew up Unitarian, so kind of universal thought is what it's all about for me. And walking a line, and I think we're going to talk about this a little bit, walking a line between traditional, maybe Christian dogma and a new thought like, hey, we're all there is a very interesting and enlightening, and I'm having a lot of fun doing it, and I'm happy to be here. And I have some other stuff going on, but that's all I want to talk about today.
Cool. Thank you for saying yes to this.
Oh, my pleasure. How could I say no?
Right. Okay. Mendhi.
Well, hi, Eugene. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. It's great to be here. I'm Mendhi Audlin. I work with New Thought churches in the United States and Canada and Australia, and helping them create small group ministry programs and mission-centric ministry. And, Eugene, when I first started in New Thought, it was about 25 years ago, and I was going through divorce, and I was kind of in that place where life fell apart. And I remember being in a service, and I had my minister, Linda Pendergrass, was giving this message, and I was like, oh, emotional. And I'm like, I don't know how I can keep it all in. And at that moment, the woman next to me, some stranger, never knew who she was, she reached over and she held my hand. And when she did that, I felt so much strength that I was really moved that she was tuned into me like that. And after service, I shared with her how much that meant to her. And she said, before I even got to say thank you, she said, I just want you to know how grateful I am that you let me reach out and hold your hand, because I was going through such a difficult time. So my passion in the work that I do is making sure that when people come into our New Thought communities, that there's a hand to hold, that we're connecting people. It's not just about the person up on the platform giving the message. It's about the community and what we can do together. So I'm thrilled to be in the company of such amazing leaders and grateful for the invitation.
Thank you, Mendhi. Thank you so much. Elzia, the Imam Reverend Elzia.
Sir, yes, sir. Appreciate the opportunity to contribute to this group and to the growth, if you will, of the New Thought idea and how it can be applied. I am currently bridge minister at CSL Denver, and previously I was young adult and special focus minister at Mile High. And as Eugene indicated, I was previously an imam in my other life, and I still adhere to a lot of those principles and practices because they're all universal and they're all, as we know, one thing. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be with everyone, and looking forward to what we co-create.
Thank you. Reverend Amanda.
Hi, Eugene. Hi, everybody. Thanks for inviting me and for all saying yes, of course. So I am an ordained New Thought minister, but the title that's in my bio that I love these days is postmodern spiritual but not religious minister. So that's kind of just been the evolution for me. And my focus has really been on creating, body positive, inclusive spaces for everyone. And that most often falls for people who are outside of some sort of normative. So, people whose bodies don't look like everyone else's, people whose voices don't sound like everyone else's, and people who just might be doing life in their own way and really honoring their path. So that's really been what I've been focused on creating space for over the last couple of years. And I've been doing that as the minister at large for the Albuquerque CSL and on my own podcast and social media presence, which is the Poly Priestess podcast. And I've been facilitating workshops, especially focused around relationship diversity for the last year or so. So that's me. And again, thanks. I'm having a good time.
Thank you for being here. And then we have the Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson.
So, licensed minister. Well, first of all, thank you all for being here, and thank you for letting me be here. It is a pleasure. I'm looking forward to this discussion because it's time for stuff to change. So I'm licensed minister with CSL. I'm in my second year at CSL Greater Baltimore, which came about from 4 centers coming together to be 1 center.
Okay.
So my focus there is changing the culture of what the 4 individual centers were to come together to now be 1 community where they were 4 different individual communities, and doing a lot of work going outside of the walls. So partnering with an elementary school in the area where we help to give the kids lunch money, where we adopted a family for Christmas and made sure that the grandkids and whatnot had, you know, toys and books and stuff. Also working to connect with the Baltimore mayor and politicians to say, you know, because I'm real big on, hey, just so you know, we're a spiritual center in your district and you need to know us. So doing that, and because I've been involved in the deaf community since 1990, bringing this philosophy and this teaching via American Sign Language to the deaf community.
Oh. You know, so last week I was, you know, I'm the spiritual director. Oh gosh, I'm Eugene Holden, licensed practitioner. I've been a licensed practitioner for 15 years. I'm an ordained minister through another organization that did that in 2005. But I'm the spiritual director at Business Honoring Spirituality here in Denver. And Mendhi Audlin was the speaker last Thursday. And Mendhi has the leadership truth or dare cards. And so I pulled one, and the one that I pulled is called Collaborate. Mm-hmm. And it's an amazing thing that here we are talking, we are collaborating, and not just here on this platform, but with everybody else who will be watching this, because I know there are going to be a lot of people that will have an opportunity to watch this simply because all of you 7 will, you know, send out the link to all of your constituents and all of the people that you're in connection with. So we get to collaborate around the world. I love this idea that came called Real Talk. And it is about real talk, having a real conversation about shit that's going on, right? And how we want to see stuff, and how we see it, and how we may want to see a change, in our role in doing that. And so today's topic is, you know, the role of new thought today, right? And so I want to make sure that everybody has used Zoom before, I'm sure, and to make sure that we don't talk over everyone, because that's an easy thing to do, especially like he said, herding cats, which are independent and intelligent. But I want to just throw that question out and throw that topic out. You know, in your opinion, what is the role of new thought? Where do you see it today, and where do you see it going? Whoever wants to start.
I'll start since nobody jumped in right away. I think, you know, a primary place that I see it is actually a backdrop for all other faith traditions or philosophies or ideology, in that we are the blanket that all these other things sit on, and we provide that connectivity to highlight and accentuate that it's all one, and that the assumed differences are only because of a proximity to each other and a perspective and a direction in which you're looking at. And so I think, you know, in that case, I think we provide the container to work with the interfaith, the diversity, all of these different efforts that are being in place now to show sameness and likeness, but also allowed us to have our own individual expression and not meld into some homogenized thing that we can't recognize.
Thank you, Osea.
I'll tell you, one of the things that I see about this is that what people are really grappling with is the concept of, or the feeling of, being separate. So as Elzia was saying, it's, you know, a way to bring people together to say, listen, look, we are really very, very much alike. Let's just go back to the womb, let's just go back, to the basic part of, we're all, we all came from water. I mean, if you want to go that, because for some people they can see that, but we have to first kind of talk them down sometimes from, this is right because this is what I believed all my life, and it must be, because otherwise I don't know who I am. One of the things that I didn't say was that I really feel like what I want to do is create a love ministry to help bring some healing to Baltimore, and as Raymont was saying, kind of like, go outside the walls. And so it does take more of us, I think, to speak this together, like this kind of forum that we have right now, because this is an awesome conversation, and more voices speaking it all at once will make a bigger impact.
Yeah.
So I sort of feel a little bit of a conflict here, because I'm not sure we're talking about what New Thought is, or we're talking about what we want it to be. Because
a little bit of both.
Okay, so my segue is where New Thought could be going. I'm still hearing far too many of us refer to New Thought as the best kept secret. And when Marianne Williamson was running for president, that was like the perfect opportunity for every one of us to come out of our centers and churches and say, she's not alone. This is what we are. It's not all crystals and incense and magic rainbows and stuff. Like, for real, this is a philosophy that goes back to the beginning of time and before time even existed, because that which is the infinite existed before time. And this is what we teach. No, we're not Scientology. No, we're not a cult. This is what we are. And yet, if you ask the average person, so New Thought, what is that? Isn't that hippie stuff that Marianne Williamson does? Okay, so what else do you know about it? Y'all smoke incense? So like, we're at the perfect opportunity to say, this is what New Thought is, and be the balm that brings healing. Like, there's so many things going on right now that we all know. New Thought brought pain and suffering, brought all of us in some way, shape, or form to New Thought.
That's right.
And so we know that it is that truth that we say there is nothing that needs to be healed, only truth to be revealed. And we know New Thought is the truth that says, you have nothing to worry about or fear, or this is how you deal with diversity and inclusion and being life affirming, and this is what you do. And yet our doors tend to still remain closed, and the average person still has no idea who we are or what we do.
Well, I'll jump in on that, because I agree. I think, we need to be telling the world what we teach. And I think if you look at where the New Thought movement is now, that's the challenge, is you could ask a dozen New Thought ministers what we teach and get a dozen different answers. That there is that unifying thread that Lane was talking about, that, there is that unity consciousness that I think we all agree on. But in terms of what is New Thought, I don't think we have a consensus on how to explain that to people in a way that isn't just, well, who do you think we are? Well, it's kind of like that, and it's kind of like that. I think the beauty of our movement is, that we do believe that change begins with each one of us as individuals. But I think right now we kind of stop at that there's this sense of, okay, I'm going to meditate and I'm going to do my affirmations and I'm going to shift my mindset, and that's going to do everything. And that's the place to begin. But where I'd love to see the New Thought movement go is to then take that fullness and take that groundedness and then express that as love out into the community. To me, it's like, if all you do is inhale, eventually you're just going to pass out or die. That you got to inhale and then you got to exhale. You got to let it in and then you got to give it out. And to be able to create structures where people can recognize that this is a place where you can come to get centered and grounded. And then as you're healed and as you're aware of that wholeness that's within you, the natural expression of that is then to then take it out into the community and be of service and demonstrate our principles in action. And I think we're really good at the first part, and I think we're just starting to scratch the surface on the second part of that.
And I'd love to jump in there real quick, cut you off there, Masando, but Mendhi speaks to something that I think is, that is incredibly important. I was brought up in my upbringing in this philosophy, taught one primary methodology: treat. Do your treatment, do your prayer work. And as I look around within New Thought, there is still a large percentage of ministers, practitioners, and members that believe our work is done in consciousness and consciousness alone. And that's it. And there is nothing for any of us to do except go sit in our little chamber on our pad and burn our incense, or it's Colorado here, so burn whatever else you want to. and just, if I just heal me, then magically everything else out in the world is going to heal itself because I've healed me. Now, on an absolute theosophical level, yes. But there's so much more in our history, and I believe in our future, that points to the second half of the statement I started with. It's not just treat. And it sounds trite to ministers, and I hear it all, treat, and we've got to move our feet. We have got to get out, and I've heard this theme starting already within this group. We've got to be visible. We've got to be approachable. It's got to be, we need, I believe, to be those models that make people say, I want what they've got. I want that. And recently I've come to 3 words that are gonna guide my ministry moving forward. Education, entertainment, and community. And honestly, I'd probably put entertainment first, except a lot of New Thought ministers that get all upset at me because we're supposed to be a teaching and a healing order, right? There ain't no entertainment supposed to be happening here. Except we also know that, Raymont's looking, I've watched Raymont on Sunday morning. So we all know there's got to be some, right? And it's already happening. Sit down and watch television. I listened to a very popular CBS show on politics. Last year, one of the characters in the middle of a huge scene says, so that we can get about doing the hard work of creating a world that works better for everyone. Well, where do you think they got that? Because there's a new thoughter in the writer's room. Well, let's get that person working for us. And I know, again, Raymont, you've got, I've seen some ideas that you're started to float around. I believe the future of New Thought is right in everybody's living room, in every industry, especially the entertainment industries. I think it's time to get out of the churches and let's get on people's radios. Let's get on their television stations. Let's get in their streaming. Let's get into their computers. Let's go and be as big as we all can in as many places as we can.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I think I have to agree with everything that's been said. I think historically, right, we've been a philosophy that has focused on personal liberation. And I think that worked for a while. But it also only, I feel, was like attractive to a certain demographic. And I think when you are only focusing on yourself, you are sometimes operating from a place of privilege that allows you to only focus on yourself and not what's going on in the world, right? And I think we are being confronted with that a little bit when we began to change our focus to a world that works for everyone. When diversity and inclusion became a value within our organizations, I think we were confronted with that. Like when we set a vision, everything that sort of is getting in the way of that vision from coming into being begins to also rear its head, right? And so I think that's what's been showing itself, and thank God for that. But we're sort of doing some shadow work, I think, right now. And in that shadow work, a lot is being revealed of what has maybe limited us from continuing to grow and expand in the way that we know that we can, what that we could do and that we can, right? But what I truly believe is that the same principles that we have utilized for personal liberation can also be utilized for collective liberation. And if we really believe in oneness, right, we recognize that there is no personal liberation, right? There is no personal enlightenment without the enlightenment of all. Like, our identities are actually all wrapped up. We're so deeply interconnected that to only focus on our oneself is a futile act, right? And I think that's sort of what the world is waking up to. And we're also sort of coming into contact with all of the messiness that is involved when we begin to recognize a greater identity, right? The internet has connected us to so many people, right? And I think we're having a hard time knowing what to do with all of it. I sure am, on a daily basis, knowing how to sort of hold all of that together, right? But what I feel is the most sort of the thing that I rely upon as far as a new thought principle is this idea of empowerment, right? I feel like there's a lot of feeling of being disempowered. You look at like the populist movement that are happening in our country. There's an inherent mistrust of those that are in power. And I think that's coming from a feeling of feeling disempowered as a people, right? These same principles can be utilized for that kind of empowerment, that like no matter what, there is a power greater than all of this, and it's right here, it's within all of us. So let's tap into that and utilize that as we move forward. When you look at the environment movement too, it's hard to be like, I'm one person, what can I do about global climate change that actually matters, right? When we root it in the fact that like, oh no, there's a greater power within, and then when we connect that power with other people, and when we like, you know, form like Voltron, like there's so much more that can happen, and we have to sort of rely upon that. So I'm excited, but I also feel like we need to do our shadow work. We need to see what's coming up and be brave in that work, so that we can continue to grow and move forward.
Yeah, so I'm gonna jump in because I live in Southern California, so it is the land of like crystals and incense. In addition to like, so then what is new thought then? And for me, the differentiation always does come from that understanding that it is a personal empowerment, right? That new thought is understanding that power is always within us all the time, and that we don't actually have to keep seeking for something outside of ourselves in order to understand our own truth and our own power. That thing that we're talking about, the law, spirit, is within us all the time, and we're helping to give people the tools to connect with that thing. And we have had a market around people who are wanting personal liberation and personal empowerment, and that has sort of, you know, pigeonholed us in that. But what I like to think about is that when we take a really deep dive down that rabbit hole to personal liberation and to empowerment, we understand how incredibly powerful we are. And we could turn that around in our own lives over and over again just to manifest, you know, whatever, the yacht. Or we can really understand that power, that the invitation to be connected to that power is a greater invitation to serve the world. And that is actually the only way that we're going to serve the world in a meaningful way. It's not just to keep making our own personal lives better, but to be connected, so deeply connected with the truth of who we are, that we then have to take that truth out into the world and understand how that makes the world a better place. And that's what I love about this philosophy, is when we have taken this deep dive into this personal empowerment and understood so deeply how loved we are and how powerful we are and how much we can just change the world by being in the depths of that we have no choice but to do all of these things that we're saying we want to do, but to go out into the world and to make it a better place. And Masando's right, there is some shadow work that comes along. We have gone down the personal empowerment rabbit hole. We know that there have been some dark moments where we are confronted with our own stuff, and we have to be present with that in order to get to this place of being powerful out in the world, to create that world that works for everyone, to make a difference, and to answer that call that is so much more and exactly the same as being personally empowered within ourselves and our own lives. Okay.
Well said, everybody. You know, because here's that thing, right, about doing this work in this philosophy is great. You know, I've been in it for a long time, and it's new thought, and it's an ancient wisdom, as Raymont said, has been around even before time began, because it is that which started time. But there was also something, you know, that we get to do with all of this, right? We get to take it, we do our work, we do our treatment. And as all of us have been saying, then it's about, okay, now let me treat, let me move my feet, let me go out into the world and do whatever it is that I am called called to do. Raymont and I did this real talk a while ago. And before that, he sent me a video of Dr. Can't think of her name right now, who quoted Dr. Martin Luther King, who said, "It's because of my faith that I do this work. It's because of what I believe that I am out here talking to people, doing the marches." And it's an interesting thing, right? That a lot of this stuff that's been going on for decades and eons and years really hasn't changed much. Well, from my perspective, we still have people who don't have enough to eat. We still have people, keeping other people down because they don't look like them. Okay, that's just a part of the deal. And because New Thought philosophy is so powerful, and me as a spiritual leader in this world, I know who am I to be. And I've been saying this. My first question is, who am I to be? And then what is mine to do? Well, okay, I know who I am. Now, let me have the chutzpah. Let me be brave enough to take it to the streets. Right? So the question that I have along with all of this is, how do we do that? How do we show up? And I know that all of us are showing up in our own beautiful, individualized ways. So I want to have you guys talk about what you feel. How do we show up? Not only individually, but as a movement. And I love that word movement because it implies action. It implies movement. How do we do that?
Please, Masando's dancing. Masando's dancing in his chair, so I need to hear.
I mean, this is what I've been focusing my ministry on, right? But I think a really cool place to start is actually be out, when you look out into the world, be super real about what's breaking your heart. And allow that movement, allow that internal response, whether that's disturbance or sadness or whatever it happens to be, right? To then guide you towards, okay, there's something in me that is responding to that thing that I'm witnessing out in the world, right? And for whatever reason, it's stirring something in me. And it's something within you that is probably seeking to be a part of that change, right? It's probably seeking to balance out whatever disturbance happens when you look at this thing, right? So we all have to be sort of really real too about that which is moving us, right? That which is disturbing us, and allowing that to be sort of a compass towards where then we can sort of move our energy towards being a part of the transformation of, right? And then we utilize the same principles, right, that we have been practicing this whole time of staying grounded, of recognizing the deep power that we hold within, of helping others to recognize that within themselves as well, and then to move together, right? To listen to the things that are coming up when we go and make contact with the things that disturb us in the world, right? And allow that to inform how we move together. It's all about how we create these relationships that allow us to become one and move together, right? But it has to come from a place within us that is feeling moved to change. Otherwise, we're going to try to do something that we think is the right thing to do, or that we should be doing, and that probably won't sustain us, right? It's got to be connected to some aspect of our soul, to the why do we come here at this particular time with these particular human beings to do this particular work together, right? There's synchronicity that allows itself, that shows itself when we sort of trust and tune into that. Otherwise, we're sort of just trying to push and we're shooting all over ourselves, and that doesn't feel good either. So I'll stop because I go on forever, but thanks, Amanda.
I think we all can.
I'm going to piggyback real quick because I think, and I agree 107,000% with Masando, and there's this idea that, and it sort of goes to what Mendhi was talking about, because we have so many different ways of expressing what New Thought is, that when, such as, okay, CDC comes out with their 7 forbidden words, and do we have the audacity to make a public statement as New Thought centers and churches that this is where we stand on this? because if we're going to, because that's a form of movement as well, you know,
Right.
a public declaration of this is what we believe about climate change. This is what we believe about children in cages, or about immigration, or about LGBTQ rights, or about a rape culture, etc. This is as a movement, as a philosophy, as a teaching, as a spiritual practice, this is our position. Do we have the audacity to publicly say that? And also piggybacking, so Masando says, you know, when we go into this, how many of us step into the role of spiritual social activism and have fellow ministers, practitioners, prayer chaplains, etc., shame us, saying that what you are doing is not what you should be doing as a spiritual person in this world. You are supposed to do the work yourself. So then we receive the shame of people in our own organizations and movement. So now not only are we doing the movement in the world, but we have the pressure of them saying, but you're doing it wrong. You're doing a form of spiritual bypass or spiritual malpractice by doing that. That's not what you're supposed to be. Your God isn't big enough, because if it was, you wouldn't be in the streets. You wouldn't be marching. The number of emails and comments I got from practitioners and ministers when I showed up at the Supreme Court recently for their, you know, the re-discussion they were going to have about, can employers deny LGBTQ people the right to have a job, blah, blah. And so I go, and there are photos that I posted, and I got messages via Facebook and Instagram and emails saying, why would you do that? Because I'm a Black, cisgender, gay man, and this affects me. It affects people in my family. It affects people in my community. It affects people in the world. And if I don't stand up, then I'm participating in spiritual masturbation. I am not creating. I am not manifesting. I am simply enjoying the pleasure of, I'm meditating and I'm enjoying myself. And I love the smell of, and give me some new crystals. I just love the way they sparkle. And that's all I'm doing. And I'm not doing a damn thing to change anything. We have to get bold enough with what we claim as spiritual truth. Eric Butterworth in the book Practical Metaphysics quotes Judge Thomas Troward and says, if spirit is anywhere, then spirit is everywhere. The allness of spirit is. Holmes said, God in me, as me, is me. We need to start stepping forward and recognizing I am that I am, and move and speak and think and serve with that power. That's how we're going to have the audacity to go out and do stuff. I'm done.
I'd love to jump in. I think we're all sitting here going, okay, who gets the unlucky card of following Raymont? But we'll turn that around. It says, who gets the lucky card of following Raymont, right?
Exactly. It's not unlucky at all.
That's what we do. And I see, in my life, if I have ever, the times that I have gotten to a point and said, I need to find a way to go serve. Let's go find a way to go serve. That doesn't work. If you're out there and you're saying, yeah, I want to be a part of the change, and this, I'm just going to go look in the phone book and find the local place where I can go serve. That doesn't work. But what does work is if we're open, if we're listening, and if we're aware of what shows up in our lives. And much like what Masando said, those places that make our heart ache. Or perhaps it's the place that makes our heart sing and be elated. I have set out to have, quote, a ministry. And those that are close to my circle know that hasn't always met with, quote, the best success in the world. It's been an interesting road. And somewhere along the line, I stopped trying to create what I thought was what my ministry should be. And I started letting my ministry come to me. And that's my point. Let your service work come to you. Let what is real and what shows up in your life be the place where you treat and move your feet. I didn't know when I started having a family that I would have a transgender child. I didn't know when I started having a family that I would have to be cognizant in how to speak within a transgender community. And the truth is, I was never trained for any of that. I was a minister, I'm ordained, and I'm not trained for any of that. And yet that's what came into my life. And I have found myself in a place where I have to learn, and I have to listen, and I have to be open to all kinds of new information so that I can show up and be as authentic as possible. Number one, for that child. And number two, for everybody else that's watching Reverend. For everybody else that's watching, oh, what's Robert going to do next? Oh, and not that everybody's just watching, waiting for me. But we all know how people watch what we do.
No shit.
And they watch how we show up. And so my ministry is constantly changing. My acts of service are constantly changing because I am constantly being called by this oneness to step into more of the greatness that I'm here to be, to step into more of that authentic self that I'm here to be, to speak the truth with a capital T to all that can hear and all that will listen. And honestly, I don't know, I can't tell you why I was put here to do all that. But I know that if it's showing up in front of me, that's where I'm being called to serve. And that's where I'm going to show up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And to jump in here, so Eugene, you asked us, how do we do this? And what's coming to me is, back in the late 1920s, and my background's in Unity. So back in the late 20s, when all these Unity spiritual centers started popping up everywhere, and some of them were doing the crystal woo-woo, and some of them were doing this, and some of them were doing that, word gets back to Charles Fillmore, co-founder, saying, hey, there's not consistency in this movement. What are you going to do about it? And he didn't want to dictate what you did or what you didn't do, but he did create a document based on his vision of what he saw a New Thought spiritual center to be. And there were two things in there that really stood out to me. One, he said, you've got to know what your purpose is. You've got to know what the mission is. What are we trying to do? Are we trying to create a world that works for all? If so, then what's the system and the infrastructure we need to create behind that? Are we trying to transform lives? If so, what's the system, the infrastructure that we create behind that? The other thing that he said is he talks about the evolution of someone on their spiritual path and how to engage them in that spiritual path. And he says, if you do this well, the inevitable result of someone aligning and awakening and discovering who they are and realizing these principles is that they're going to want to be teachers also. And so he said the most important thing that a spiritual leader can do, or minister, New Thought minister could do, is to cultivate co-workers. So that was his vision, is for us as leaders to be cultivating co-workers. And then I think we went into this model where we created these churches, and instantly the paradigm of minister congregation crept in. And it's not, the minister is not co-workers with the congregation. So we have this different paradigm based on the training that isn't consistent with the original founding vision. So for me, the work that I do with small groups is about, yes, we all have a calling. It's not just the leader and the minister saying, here's what's in my heart that I want us to do together. It's organizing the community and, finding those people in the community that have that same passion and saying, okay, so we have this structure where you can meet people, you can connect with people, you can use the wisdom that's within you to identify what you as a small group want to do together. And here's how frequently we're going to do something. We're going to do something every 10 weeks. And we're going to check in. We're going to hear what you did. And it's yours. It's not mine that you're doing because it's my thing. It's your thing that you're creating. And I think the role as leader, I think we have to have a paradigm shift around what that truly means to be a New Thought leader. It doesn't mean that we have to go out and figure out what flag we want to wave and get everybody behind us. It's more about, creating that awakening experience and then bringing people together and saying, okay, what is it that's in your heart? And how can we as a community provide space for everyone in this community to do the things that they're feeling called to do? So that to me is the how. It's a retraining of our leadership. It's creating systems and structures where everyone has a chance to express that love that they're discovering within them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just to,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead, Reverend Amanda.
Thanks.
Go.
So yeah, I think that that is where the disconnect often happens, right? Is that we stand up on stages and we want to tell people that they are empowered, that they embody this same exact power that we embody, and that we all have the same exact power to go out and change the world as we are moved from our hearts. And we have created all of these systems and structures that somehow now you know, to nod back to Raymont, that are cutting us off from being able to do that. So a minister has to occupy this space because I am a leader. So for me to go out into the world and be this presence in this way that is very true to who I am, somehow, somewhere out there, the rest of the ministers or whomever the powers may be decide that we need their approval or we need their understanding for the way that we show up in the world as the truth of who we are. And that's actually just not how this works, right? I'm not teaching the people the philosophy. I've not come to my students and said that your way of learning this and embodying this philosophy is valid only when I understand it. And we need to understand that when we're giving ourselves these tools and when we're giving our students these tools, the way that everybody embodies these is unique and beautiful and different. And that is the true shadow work, right? Because all of a sudden we are being confronted with these ways that people have embodied this philosophy that we have lovingly handed to them in a way that is unique and powerful only to them. And then it is our job, and it is only our job, to hold space for them to do that in their way. And all of those places where we have decided that it is either our approval or our disapproval or some other shade of that that is needed in order for them to be successful or valid or beautiful, we have cut off this experience of the divine in any of those ways, in any of those places. And so I just, you know, I've taught practitioner students, like, we get to be the loving parents that sort of, you know, teach people. We hand them the tools and we lovingly instruct you on, this is my perception. And then you go out into the world and you make manifest these things in the way that only you can. And that is the way to honor this philosophy and this teaching the best. There is no other way. And yes, we have to have structures, but we can create structures that are actually allowing us to do that, to be the well-intentioned parents who give people the tools to then go out into the world and really be these authentic, loving expressions and understand that only that thing is what is the best for the world. Only people's authenticity, only the places where they're being moved by love and this truth within each one of us. That's what makes the difference.
Yeah, I'd like to add in, and, you know, for me, I just want to take a step back, and you asked the question, how do we do this? And I think from my perspective, it starts with the idea of wholeness. There's an ancient African saying that says, I am because we are, which speaks to the idea of wholeness. And so when we can keep that as a backdrop of how we operate within our own mythology, our own story, that gives us this idea that, first of all, everything is not for everybody, right? If everybody in the community was doing the same thing, then nothing would get done. And to take it either to a further analogy, I like to always use the analogy of the body. If the heart got very upset with the lungs and start fighting, we know what that causes: problems at a very bad level. So I think this whole statement you made earlier about taking that deep dive when we're doing this personal work to really understand what it is you are called to do or what it is you think you're here to do. Because if we evolve and go within the wholeness, that will become a lot clearer, because as you said, and everyone is attested to, we have our own maladies and shadows and all these other things that's been put upon us that were put in a bad context or in a wrong, you know, place or whatever, that we need to work through for ourselves. But once we have that, or we are almost clear with that, we have to join into the whole, and we got to work it out. If you're better at doing ABC, there's no need of me messing with that. I'm going to support you in that. I'm not going to get jealous because you're doing it or thinking you're trying to take ABC from me, because I can't do nothing with it anyway. If you give it to me, I'm going to mess it up. So we have to, I think, begin to look at the wholeness of what we're trying to do. And everybody, there's a place and expertise that each one of us has. And I think that's where we really have to start. And then from there, we have to really, I think, get into this idea of, how do I self-actualize within the community? So I self-actualize for myself, but now I need to self-actualize within the community and not be afraid to take a back seat. And sometimes you may have to take a front seat even when you don't want that seat, because it's a give and take. And that's the whole thing about wholeness, is that it is a continual balance. The body is continually balancing itself every second of the day. And as a body of new thought, as a body of an ancient teaching that has practiced and taught from the very beginning that we are evolving, we have to be fluid enough and find the rhythm within that to make it happen.
And then also to be brave enough to be seen, to be brave enough to show up, to be brave enough to do that work, you know, in spite of what others, especially the leaders who are in our own New Thought community, who are saying, as Raymont was, you know, saying that, well, no, you don't do it like that. You know, when you were speaking, Ozia, what it reminded me of were three of the masters, right? You know, we have Yeshua Messiah, we have Martin Luther King Jr., we have Gandhi, who were all very steeped in their spiritual practices, but didn't give a flying flea about what others thought, because they knew that something had to be changed. They didn't care about what people were saying. You know, people are going to talk about us regardless. So why not do what we're here to do, in spite of what we may even think that they may say? It doesn't matter what they say. It is time for us to show up in beautiful, big, brass, and bold ways, to say, this is what we stand for, and we have these principles that we get to stand upon to use. Man, please. Lane, I want to go to you. I don't know why Spirit just says ask Lane.
Ask me what, dude?
I don't know. Just to
Yeah.
Just to express.
You know, what came to me really in the conversation, particularly as LZ was talking about wholeness, is this concept of radically inclusive love.
Whew.
And, you know, when people hear that word, a lot of times they're very cynical. You know, they're like, what, radically inclusive love? Yeah, right. You know, and I think as a body, as spiritual leaders, we kind of need to, what Raymont was saying, absolutely take a stand and show people that we are really serious about this. Like, yeah, no, I mean radically inclusive love, and try me, you know, kind of like that. And I think as, and I'm the only person on this lovely conversation who actually is not a New Thought leader, and no stranger to the philosophy. However, it behooves us to come out that way, just because other religious organizations have come out that way, and that is how you bring more people into the conversation, in being a whole being, a moving kind of, we agree, and we want you to come and agree. And I get it that sometimes that's not what you want, because Mendhi was saying, no, it's not about, or Amanda, it's not about I agree, you agree. You know, it's not about that. And sometimes there needs to be a shift, as LZ was saying, kind of a flow to kind of get off center, stay center, but kind of be willing to go over there so that you can flow back to your center. If you get what I'm saying. I feel like I just babbled a bunch of stuff, but I think you guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, just real quick. There's no, that's perfect, because I mean, one of the things I'm doing right now, I'm teaching a class on the Kabbalion, and those 7 principles of vibration and flow and correspondence, that is the wholeness. That is the piece of it, that it all has to move, that everything shifts, everything is still in alignment when it shifts, because every time I move from space A to space B, I'm in a different total environment, and I may need to shift some things. I may need to focus a different way. I may need to raise my vibration or lower my vibration. So these ancient teachings, which we have inherited, if you will, in terms of New Thought, are very, very practical and very, very useful and results oriented. But I think, as you were saying earlier, one thing I'm trying to do now is be very conscious of the language that I use. And I try to use my phone. I got a thesaurus on my phone, so I stopped trying to use all the buzzwords, because the moment you say the buzzword, depends on where that person is, they've either cut off or got overly excited. And so now we can't have a real conversation, because you're going to be coming from somewhere, or I'm going to be coming from somewhere that's not going to be looking to build that wholeness. And so that coupled with, we know our words have power. When I give you a new word that you're not used to, you got to at least think about it for a minute and try to put it in some context, or you got to say, man, what the heck are you talking about? And now we got a chance for dialogue. And now we can really get to a unique, co-joined place that says, okay, I can get with that. Now we got a marching order and we can move.
Cool. I don't know who it was who said it. Oh, yes, I do, because I wrote the name. Mendhi. Principle in action. You know, which goes to that and is tied into treat and move your feet, right? But it's about, and faith without works is dead, and all of that stuff. And so what we're here talking about is exactly that. You know, I'm going to weave some stuff in here, you know, that all of you have said, you know, with Lane's, you know, her love ministry and principles in action, and you know, really being brave enough to show up in spite of what folks say, you know, and to tap into what is the purpose, you know. And one of the things that came to me is that, you know, as leaders, what do we do as leaders is that we lead. Now, of course, we all have our own individual ways of doing that, you know, but it is more than, it's been past time for us to show up and lead in remarkable ways, and maybe not so remarkable ways, but to show up and lead, to show up and speak up and speak out to what is not working and what is, you know? Yeah, to be brave enough to step into the education, Robert, and the entertainment and the community. One of the things when you said that, Robert, that word entertainment, I remember listening to Dr. Holmes, one of the talks. He said that people are so more willing to be entertained than to be healed.
Oh, yes.
Right? Well, we're past the entertaining. I'm tired of being step and fetch it and just tap dance around this. Right? So here we are, you know, having this real conversation about showing up and showing out. You know, because a change has been, as I mentioned in the email earlier, right, that it's been past time. Change has been coming along, or the need for change has been there forever. You know, so here we are, this beautiful collective of powerful beings saying we are here to make a difference. We are here to make a difference. Man, how time flies.
And
I'm looking at the clock going, what?
Can I jump in, Eugene, on just one thing? When you talked about the entertainment, because I wrote down, and I'm glad you circled back to it, is that I think part of the problem, not just with New Thought, but all religious organizations, especially in the era of mega churches and all of that, people are going to be entertained. That's why they go partly to go to some of these centers. And I think what we have to shift from is to shift, not that we don't have an entertaining component, but I think the most important thing is that we begin to have or create an experience that can be experienced, if you will, so that when I leave out of the center, or I lead out of the study group, or I lead out of whatever it is that we are, you know, putting on, I've had an experience, right? And so now fundamentally something has changed. I mean, if we look at now, just to take a secular point of it, when people talk about vacations now, one of the things that everybody is advocating for is an experiential vacation. I don't want to just go sit on the beach anymore. I may want to do some of that, but I want to go get out in the people. I want to go help. I want to go do something, because I want to come back with more than just some pictures of me sitting on the beach or drinking a nice drink. And so we have to begin to have that in our centers and in our study groups and in all of our different things, so that people leave out with an experience, because it's going to last. And if they sit with that for a minute, they're going to say, I need to go back over there because I felt something. I might not even know what the heck it was, but I felt it. And I want to see if it was a fluke. So I've got to go back at least one more time. And then if I feel it again, now we may have a problem, because I might have to go a lot of times. And now that's what we want. We want to be able to cultivate that, so that it's like, here's a place where you can come and be yourself, have an experience, and through these experiences, expand and evolve into the greater yet to be.
Yeah.
And can I
Please.
add something real quick? So my master's is in theater education. So I learned a long time ago that there are also degrees of consciousness within entertainment. You can go see something like Harriet and it expand your consciousness, where you leave the theater and you're like, I got to do something. Or you can go see the latest Lego movie and just laugh and then come out and go get a drink. Like,
Right.
there are degrees of entertainment as well. And when I got involved in American Sign Language, got involved with an all-deaf performance company, and I was their full-time interpreter, guest performing artist. And we got into a conversation one time about their vision and mission. And somewhere in that conversation, they came up with the word, you know what we do with deaf culture and bridging the gap between hearing culture and deaf culture, it's actually not entertainment, it's edutainment. We are educating people through this mode of entertainment.
Right.
And like, that's what we do as a culture. People got mad at Joaquin Phoenix at the Oscars about his speech, because there are some who just want entertainment to be a numbing, thing that they can, versus, but I want to also think, I want to be challenged, I want to raise my consciousness, and that's what that does. So just being aware that there are levels of even something as entertainment.
Right. A friend of mine years ago said, entertainment. Let me create an experience for you to enter, so that I may maintain your attention. Right? So that whatever that experience is. Wow. Cool. Very, very cool. Unfortunately, I need to bring this to a close. Yeah, right? Unless we want to keep going. I mean, I don't mind, but I want to honor everyone's time. And as we have mentioned on emails, as we were preparing for this, I believe that this is only the first of many. I see the nods of heads. Yes. And we can talk about how that will look. But again, I want to thank each and every one of you. Reverend Lane Cobb, Baltimore, Reverend Masando in Denver, Reverend Robert Brzezinski in Arvada, the beautiful and talented Mendhi Audlin in Evergreen. Yep. Elzia Sekou, Reverend Elzia Sekou here in Denver. And of course, my brother Raymont Anderson in Baltimore. Did I hit everybody? Reverend Amanda in Southern California. Where are you now?
I am in Los Angeles.
You are in Los Angeles. Yay. And then, of course, there's me, international and just universal, Eugene. Again, everybody who is watching this, thank you for tuning into Real Talk. Know that we will be coming at you again soon. With that, I say peace and abundant blessings to all of you. Wait a minute. Before I say that.
Eugene, may I add one thing real quick?
Yes.
Speaking directly to anybody that's watching this, right? You didn't get to be a part of it, but I believe, and I think my colleagues will agree, we want you to be a part of it.
Yes.
So leave a comment. Tell us what you want more of. Do you want this format? Would you like more people, less people? Do you want 2 hours? Do you want it? What works best for you?
Thank you.
To engage with this group, because I'm pretty sure everybody here would be more than happy to support you along your spiritual journey as well.
Well said. Well said. Raymont, what does that mean?
Amen.
Ah, okay.
I put my stamp of authority. Amen.
Amen. Before we sign off, is there anybody, is there anything that you want a closing comment?
If you're still here watching, thank you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to what I said before, that we don't have to only be motivated by by which breaks our heart, that we can also be motivated by that which lifts us up and sustains us, right? Because there's certain movements that give you life. And so as you're looking towards who is doing the work out in the world that is attractive, that you want to be a part of, also stay tuned into that, because those are most likely the movements that you have a piece to play in. So be just aware of it all and know that's part of your internal intelligence that is speaking to you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Go ahead.
Oops, go ahead, Mendhi.
I was just going to say thank you, Eugene, for bringing us together, because it's amazing to have this conversation. And I know we all have incredible missions and purpose on our own. And I think when we come together like this, there's so much more that we can do. So very grateful for what you've created here.
You're welcome. I'm just listening.
Eugene, you're doing a lot more than that. Just thank you so much for bringing us together and for edutaining us. Here's also what I wanted to say was that I believe Bishop Vashti McKenzie here from Baltimore, and she said, that which you love will lead you forward. Right? So when Masando was talking about it, just doesn't have to be what breaks your heart, but really just focus on what you love and go in that direction. And at some point, the two will merge. Yeah.
This is good stuff. Who else? Closing remarks.
I would just say to everyone here and everyone that may be watching, is just to breathe, to allow ourselves to relax and to get into our flow and begin to understand as we breathe what our vibration is. And once we can fall into that space, I think everything will start moving in the right direction and just give us some clarity to keep moving.
Cool.
I'm just gonna, say that this collaboration and this creative process has been just a beautiful illustration of what we are and what we teach, and that is just it, that this is the creative process, that there is nothing but beauty in that process, even those places where they feel like, like Lane was saying, like there might be something that is breaking our heart and something that is building our heart up, and those things are going to meet in the middle. The creative process is that beauty, and it's what we teach, and it's what I love about this philosophy. So thank you so much, Eugene, for bringing us together to have the conversation about the creative process and all of the beauty, and honoring that God is present in all of the steps along the way and meets us, each one of us, wherever we are. So thank you for allowing us to meet that in one another today and with anyone who is participating. So I appreciate it so much. Thanks.
I piggyback on that with much appreciation and thank you. And closing comments would be two things. One, there is a power for good that is the universe itself. And the reason you can use it because you and it are one. It's all there is. God is a circle whose circumference is nowhere, whose center is everywhere. Therefore, exactly where any of us, it's the center of God. And Ernest Holmes said that the only God we're ever going to truly know is the God that we embody. So the more we get to know ourselves, our shadow, which we talked about, the various ways in which we think and create and feel and everything that we are, the more we dig deep into that, the more we are going to understand ourselves as the divine, as the sacred, and as that which creates.
Absolutely. Oh, again, I am so very grateful for all of you for saying yes to coming and play with me on this thing called Real Talk with Eugene. Thank you for playing with me in this playground, because I know that everything that all of you guys do individually touch lives around the world. So I'm sure that we'll be talking soon. Again, this has been Real Talk with Eugene. Peace and abundant blessings. And we're out.